everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first week of Diabetes Awareness Month tag that I did come up with here. These are questions I came up with, and I'm sure some of these have been answered in previous tags, but I thought some of these questions that I came up with were pretty good and pretty open for discussion here, and I'm curious to know what your answers are, so feel free to answer these questions down below or tag me on Instagram or whatever the case may be, and apply them to your life as need be. But I believe when I created these tags or took tags from other people, I believe I created 10 questions apiece. And this first one goes into quite a few different things. But the first one I have on here is, have I ever reused diabetes supplies or rationed insulin? I have never rationed insulin, but back when I thought I was going to have to pay a ton of money for insulin, not realizing that my insurance covered it fairly well as a copay, and if you get reasonable insurance, you should be able to get it covered in a reasonable copay. I did at one point start only telling myself I could only eat so much at a certain meal so that I could try to let the insulin last for a full month or whatever the case may be. But that is definitely not the case anymore. I don't do that. But I've never ever truly looked at a high blood sugar and have only taken a little bit for it, or have looked at a plate of food and denied myself the insulin I needed. I've never ever had to do that, and I'm very blessed and lucky to never have to do that, and nobody should have to be rationing insulin. This has to stop. It is absolutely ridiculous the amount of people that are out there that are rationing their insulin. Not your fault that you have type 1 diabetes. Not your fault that your body decided to stop producing insulin. Not your fault. And they can make insulin so cheaply now. It is made in a lab with synthetic materials, and it is made using recombinant DNA technology, which basically means they let E. coli spit it out. And let me tell you, E. coli is everywhere, okay? E. coli is present on pretty much any surface that you can think of. Doesn't mean it's necessarily going to get you sick, but they can use this E. coli, give them the genetic information to code for the amino acids that make up insulin as a protein, and spit it out. It costs virtually a few dollars to produce a vial of insulin, and they're selling it for $400 a vial, if not more now. It is absolutely ridiculous. This has got to stop. People's greed needs to stop. And the more we need to spread awareness about this, more people that voice and share that if they had to ration insulin and it has caused issues, the better. And there are people out there that have died from rationing insulin because they've gotten to the point where their blood sugar has gotten so high that they've gone into diabetic ketoacidosis and were unfortunately never be able to recover. They went either to a coma, or they were too far gone with their kidneys or organ failure that they ended up dying. Not cool. Not supposed to happen. This angers me anytime I hear anybody else dying from type 1 diabetes insulin rationing. It sickens me. It literally sickens me. Now, I could go on and on about this, but that's how I would answer this question. Reusing diabetes supplies, I mean, I try to get as much wear out of my sensors as I can. I try to get at least 14 days out of them. It does help save me money. And I don't change my lancet every day, not because I don't have money to buy lancets, but because I honestly forget. But the way I remember to change my lancet is the day I change my pump, I also change my lancet. So at least I'm changing my lancet every 3 days, but I hear a lot of people that reuse pen needles and lancets and syringes until they're literally dull. This is not good. I have never ever had to reuse an insulin pen needle or a syringe, nor will I ever, because that just damages and causes more scar tissue. But I don't doubt that there are people out there that ration these too because they just can't afford them. Question 2 is, if I ever considered switching insulin pumps or going back to multiple daily injections. If I had to switch insulin pumps, I would probably, like say my insurance didn't cover the Dash or something anymore, I would go back to the old Omnipod version, or I would be interested in maybe a tandem pump because it does communicate with the Dexcom. However, I'm very comfortable with Omnipod, and I know in the near future, they're going to be in a closed loop system too, where they will be able to integrate with the Dexcom G6 and adjust basal rates automatically for predicting what my blood sugar would be in the future. Going back to MDI, I don't foresee myself going back to MDI in the future, although it wouldn't bother me. I may take a pump vacation sometime, not anytime soon though. I don't think my body really responds well to long-acting insulin. I did fine on it, but I used to get purpling on my toes and fingers, when I was on Lantus, and I no longer get that ever since being just only pumping with Humalog, because the Humalog acts as not only your rapid acting insulin for meals, you get dispersed a certain amount of Humalog every 5 minutes as a basal rate. And I think my body and my whole entire bodily systems just functions better on one type of insulin being dispersed at 2 different rates, which again better mirrors your body. But will I go on a pump vacation ever? I'm not scared to, and it doesn't bother me to do shots. But unfortunately, the career I'm in and the schooling I'm in, it is just not convenient to be able to whip out needles and insulin pens and give myself injections. Now, if that's the only thing I could do and I had to do, I'll do so. But in the future, in the near future, I don't see myself switching back or switching to a different insulin pump brand. Number 3, what are my favorite places to inject insulin or place sites? The back of my arms. I absolutely love putting my pumps here. They get the best absorption. They're out of the way. Same with my Dexcoms. I really love placing them on the inner side of my arm. Second favorite site is abdomen. However, I have been avoiding my abdomen for a while just to give it a break. I feel like the abdomen just gets overly used. I have been liking placing Omnipods kind of in the middle of my thigh and the more musclier parts, and they've been working out well. And I've yet to try some unusual areas like the back of my calf and the back behind my hips here on the lower back. I would like to try placing some pump sites there and see how those work. But I definitely enjoy my arms and my stomach the most. I feel like they get the best absorption. They're the most convenient, and they're the least painful upon site insertion or injections. At least for me particularly. Favorite diet or sugar-free drink? Diet Coke. Huge Diet Coke drinker. Ever since hygiene school, I swear I need to be drinking caffeine to keep myself awake. But anyways, that's what I love for a favorite diet or sugar-free drink, which was question 4. Question 5, favorite free food or zero or ultra-carb food or snack. A free food basically means we can eat it without consuming insulin. Beyond, I would say, I really love cheese, but beyond cheese, I would say I definitely snack on a ton of like meat sticks. I also do enjoy eating like cucumbers and stuff. I definitely would say I eat those the most as free foods that are ultra low carb also. So yeah, that's what I really enjoy for free foods, ultra low carb foods and stuff like that. Question 6, would I rather have a blood sugar of 75 with a straight arrow headed down or a BG of 250 straight arrow headed up? Honestly, BG of 75 straight arrow headed down, because I do know how to stop my low blood sugars now. Having an insulin pump, I can suspend insulin. I do know how much it is to stop a low for me and to catch that before it happens. Unfortunately, when I'm at 250 with a straight arrow headed up, I feel like garbage. I feel like garbage with blood sugars above 160. I am extremely hyper aware. So much so that a minorly high blood sugar bothers me, or I don't really feel quite right. And to me, a blood sugar 250 straight arrow headed up starts to scare me into thinking, how much higher is it going to go? Is it going to stop? Am I going to have to give myself multiple injections and slug tons of water to try to get this down? I personally feel better knowing, treating lows that are dropping than highs. Which leads into question number 7 here. Do you have hypo or hyperglycemia unawareness? I definitely do not have hyperglycemia unawareness. I would say definitely blood sugars above 160. I can definitely tell when I'm higher than that. Now, the symptoms aren't as major as if I was 250. But I definitely can tell my throat starts getting a little dry. When I get above 180, my eyes start drying out. When I get above 180 or 190, I start feeling a little sluggish, a little tired, a little slow, a little brain fog. But let me tell you, I have pushed past a lot of these garbage feelings and have kept going in school. And let me tell you, you learn to get used to these garbage feelings as a type 1 diabetic. And as much as it sucks, you have to learn to push past that. Hypo unawareness, I definitely did not have this issue. But as more recently, I have. I've had a couple times where my blood sugar, Dexcom had said I was 55. And I'm like, I definitely do not feel low. Let me finger prick. I bet you, I guarantee you, my blood sugar is 86 and I am not low. I finger pricked. I was 51. I had 0 symptoms. I had no headache. I had no shakes, no weakness in my knees, no hunger, no blurry vision, no impaired speech, no irritability, anxiety, racing heart. I had none of the classic hypoglycemia warning signs that I normally get, or at least I get for my body. I did not have those. And I'm like, what on God's green earth is this? and it's a little bit of hypo unawareness, and that actually happens the further, I believe, the further and further you progress in your diabetes journey and your diabetes life. The more often you have lows, the more accustomed you get to having low blood sugars, and you definitely don't feel them as much. So, and it doesn't happen to me all the time, but I would definitely say, if I had, I would say 2 or 3 out of every 10 lows I have, I don't feel. Or I don't have severe symptoms for, or I freak out because it's like you're low, but you don't feel it. It happened to me the other day. I had a 61 and I did not even feel it. I shouldn't say I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it until after I sat up or after I did something else. But that odd 55 that I had, or 51 or whatever the Dexcom said that I had, I was out and active and stuff and had no warning signs. So I would definitely say I'm hyper aware, but kind of partially hypo unaware, if that makes sense. I'm a little bit of both with hypo. Sometimes I feel them, sometimes I don't. Number 8, what is the largest amount of insulin I've ever given myself at one time? 9 units. That was at Easter of this past year. I gave myself 9 units of insulin for 90 grams of carbohydrate. I typically do not go past 5 or 6 units of insulin on a meal, just because, number 1, I try to eat fairly low carb. Number 2, I find it easier and less risky to dose big dumps of insulin. And number 3, again, I don't like to use tons of insulin if I don't have to. Not saying I'm rationing it, but I just prefer to eat a lot of stuff that is lower in the carbs, which means a lot less insulin that you have to take it for. And my insulin sensitivity, or insulin to carb ratio, is 1/10, so that means, like, in order for me to take pretty large doses of insulin, I got to be taking more than 70 or 80 grams of carbohydrate in at one time, and I normally do not do that. I normally, as of now, I think the heaviest dose I've ever taken at one time is 54, and that was just yesterday. Typically at school, I would say most of my meals are 20 to 40, and most likely 20 to 30. And I've had meals at 10 carbs. I have significantly reduced the amount of insulin and carbohydrate I take at school. Number 1, to reduce stress. Number 2, less risk with insulin and all the different things. But 9 units has been my biggest dose. Now, some of you, for 90 grams of carbohydrate, may have had to take way more than 9 units, but for me, 9 units worked out just fine because I use a 1/10. If you used a 1/20, you would have used half the insulin I would have used at 4.5 units. Or if you were at a 1/5 insulin to carb ratio, you would use double the amount of insulin I would use, which would mean that you would use 18 units. Number 9, have I been in diabetic ketoacidosis or DKA since diagnosis? No, I have not. I have not even come close to that level. And I've only seen small ketones since I've been home, and that was only one time. And I do develop ketones fairly quickly, but I've never been able to go past that, and I'm on top of my blood sugars. I get above 220. I take an injection. I don't even use my pump, just because I do not want that risk, and it also buys me time to make sure my pump set is actually working before I decide to rip it off. So. And the final question for this tag is, have I ever passed out or had a seizure from a dangerous low blood sugar? No, but I've come close. If you want to know about my worst low blood sugar story, it happened about a handful of months ago. I was in a Chinese restaurant, took way too much units up front, and ended up with the blood sugar in the upper 30s and low 40s. And let me tell you, at that level, I thought I was going to die, and I thought I was going to pass out, but I actually didn't. Very lucky, thank God. I was able to fix it. But that is the lowest I've ever been, and I'm sure it wouldn't have taken much more time for me to start seizing or passing out or go unconscious at that level, because once you start getting into the 30s and 20s, you're getting to the point where it's almost going to kill you. Now, again, I have heard many stories from a lot of you that have gone way lower than that, into the 20s and teens, and have still been functioning and alive, but you're very lucky to be here, and I hear too many horror stories of people at 50 passing out. Here me at 39 still functioning. I was very lucky. I had a lot of anxiety from that low blood sugar, and for a long time I was scared to take big doses of insulin. For a long time I let my blood sugars run a little higher than normal, just because I was scared to go low again. But then after that point, I got used to fixing lows and understanding more of the rules of food and stuff, and just recognizing, hey, my body doesn't need this much insulin up front, or hey, there was a lot of other factors that day that contributed to that low. For those of you that don't know part of this story, I'll try to remember to leave a link down below when I explained this story. But that day, I was actually still on multiple daily injections. The night before, I had injected my Lantus into a muscle. And injecting insulin into a muscle means it works faster and quicker. So all day long, I was fighting lows, up and down, up and down, up and down. I would go from 70 to 150, 70 to 150, 70 to 150. Like, I could not eat enough to literally keep my blood sugar up. So that wasn't helping that day. And then to take all that rapid-acting insulin for the Chinese food, which digests slowly, caused that a pretty rapid drop in blood sugar levels. So I've not passed out yet. I've not had a seizure, knock on my head. that doesn't happen. But I'm sure there are plenty of you that have had that happen to. And in that situation, you would want the glucagon emergency and or 911 or paramedics called to the rescue. So anyways, that is it for this first week of Diabetes Awareness Month tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. And again, if you want to answer any of these questions down below, feel free to do so. I'd love to hear your answers, and I'd love to hear other people's stories and input and advice on these different questions, just because the more we share, the more information that gets spread about type 1 diabetes, and the closer and closer we can get to better treatments and eventually a cure, which I do foresee coming. Whether or not it's in my lifetime, I do not know that. But I do foresee really good treatments coming out for us really soon. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. I post videos every single week about diabetes plus more. Stay tuned for more videos coming out from me. I enjoy making these videos. Despite being in dental hygiene school and being super busy, this is something I still really enjoy. And I enjoy spreading awareness about type 1 diabetes. I enjoy being a YouTuber. Like I said, this was a big dream of mine when I was younger, and to make this dream pretty much become a reality, it's amazing to me that this channel has grown as fast as it has, and the amount of support I've gotten from you guys and the amount of feedback I've gotten from you guys has been so absolutely incredible. So until next time, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful. Bye, everyone.